everybody. Here we go. We're on to chapter 1. As we said earlier, chapter 1 doesn't, well, the textbook fits cleanly into 4 units, but this particular chapter doesn't fit into any unit. It's just opening material. But first, we just really need to talk about what is social psychology, right? So, first couple of questions: what kinds of things do they do? Well, in fact, here's the 3 different units in many ways: social thinking, social influence, and social relations. That is to say, well, social psychology is the scientific study how people think about, influence, relate to each other. In other words, as we hinted at yesterday, social psychology studies how you change your behavior when other people are around, okay? As a consequence of them or their influence on you, or the mere fact that they're there. As I said, your nose itches and you're in a crowded room, you don't jam your finger up there, right? So we find that, look at me, we find that other people influence us quite radically, whether we want to believe it or not. But also social thinking, that is to say what we believe about ourselves and what we think about others. We need to know the judgments we make. I know I'm not judgmental. Yes, you are. We're all judgmental. We all do. And how our attitudes are formed, how people act in groups, and social relations such as, prejudice and liking people and not liking people and things like that. Social psychology is definitely different from sociology. Sociology is the study of the behavior of groups, whereas social psychology, to keep it simple, is the study of the behavior of an individual in the presence of a group, something like that. I mean, it's not quite that, but that's a pretty good breakdown. No. How much of our social world is just in our heads? That's an important point we're going to come back to. That is to say, there's 2 different realities. There's actual reality, and then there's your reality. And when it comes to your decisions and your attitudes and it's what goes on in your head that's true. Not so, somebody blows you off and you're all pissed off. Oh my God, yeah, no. But meanwhile, that person doesn't even know that they blew you off. What's more important, the truth? That person had no idea, didn't intend to be mean or rude to you, or what's more important, or the truth in your head. You think that they dissed you. What you think is more important than the truth. Some other things here. We construct our social reality. Yeah, that's pretty good. Well, here, in fact, let me put this up. We construct our social reality. There was a football game. This was what? Princeton and Dartmouth. There you go. 2 Ivy League schools, Princeton and Dartmouth. They had a football game. It was pretty ugly. They were beating out of each other by the end. But and everybody agreed it was pretty ugly. But then what they did was they took a video of the football game, and they showed it to both Princeton students and Dartmouth students, and then said, hey, we want you to watch this video and very independently, put away your school affiliation and just tell me who's, causing problems. And when the Dartmouth students watched the video, they saw about an equal number of infractions for both teams. However, when the Princeton students watched it, they saw a great large number of infractions by the Dartmouth students, far more than by the Princeton students. What was the reality of this game? I don't know. But clearly, the person watching the game influenced what they saw, okay? And so, you as an observer construct the reality that goes on in your head, and then in your head is in fact more important than the true reality, right? Right? So if you think your friend dissed you, that's more important than whether he did or not. Social intuitions. Yeah, we'll talk, especially when we get to like prejudice and stereotypes. Our social intuitions are, dare I say, automatic thinking. The thinking that occurs just without rational thought. This stuff is really powerful. It really is. We are required to make thousands of decisions, millions of decisions per day, the majority of which have consequences which really aren't that important. But sometimes they are, right? Sometimes, you blow off the wrong person or something. But the idea is that we have to make millions of decisions a day, and if we stopped to rationally consider all of this and that and weigh the consequences and we couldn't exist. So instead, I mean, we use heuristics, we use mental shortcuts, and we make decisions that are usually correct. All right, and they're pretty powerful. I mean, we don't even know how we made these decisions, but bang, we do, and we find that these social intuitions, these intuitive, these automatic decisions lead to things such as the in-group bias, lead to prejudice and discrimination, and we'll talk about these when we get to them. Yeah, of course. Uh, you are a product of the social world that you grew up in. It's very, very different. What you experienced when you were young is what you think is acceptable and correct now. All right, whatever. Oh yeah, social behavior is biologically rooted. We're going to come back. I told you, I think in the orientation I had mentioned that we were going to add a little, it's not a chapter, motivations, social motivations. But it turns out that, all of us need to eat, drink, and I guess, I didn't look at my roster, find a woman, right? Maybe in your case it's you work it out, okay? But these are universal motives, right? All humans everywhere have these motives, and they drive our behavior. And there are certain social motives that we're going to come back to as well, and these also are biologically rooted. In fact, I just was reading a Time magazine cover story on optimism, about this belief that the future is going to be so great, and the researchers were saying how this was an evolutionary mechanism. It's pretty complicated, but what an interesting thought that something as obscure as optimism might be considered a biologically rooted motive. Okay, so we'll come back to that motives in that other chapter. Blah blah blah. Have fun with that. We'll come back to the culture definitely. You guys can read that stuff. Blah blah blah. Yeah, we'll come to that. Is social psychology simply common sense? A lot of people wonder if psychology as a whole is just common sense. No, it's not. Though there are certain things that look obvious. Usually, they're not. Okay. Here's one of my favorites. This was two students of mine, Jennifer Werner and I don't remember her Mitchell, but whatever. Jennifer Werner went on to grad school, and I wrote her letter of recommendation. That's why I remember Jennifer Werner. But Mitchell, I don't remember. Just some face in the past. Well, they did a project here where before Thanksgiving 2003, there was a football game on Thanksgiving Day. Football, anybody? I'm waiting. Are we going to have some football this year? Before Thanksgiving 2003, they were told about a game. They were told about a game between the Lions and the Packers. I want to say that they were told on like Monday before the Thursday game, and they were asked certain questions. Okay, they were told on Monday, the Green Bay Packers' current record is. They were told, I don't even remember exactly what, but certain bits of information to make sure that everybody was on track with football. Because I know some of you ladies don't watch football. I just don't get it, but whatever. So they were told, this is what they were, and then who do you think is going to win? And then overwhelmingly on that Monday before Thanksgiving, they said the Packers were going to win, and they should. Okay, just so you know. So what happened was on Thanksgiving Day, actually the Lions did win. Okay, so now they then followed up with them, maybe let's say the next week on Wednesday, something like that, and they asked them to remember. They said, okay, look, in this football game, the Lions won by such and such a score, and then they were asked, okay, now I want you to remember who you chose last week, and how confident you were last week. Oh yeah. Go back. Last week, Monday, before Thanksgiving, not just who's going to win, but how confident are you that they're going to win. Okay. Flash forward again to Wednesday after Thanksgiving, And so what we find is that a handful of people that had selected the Packers on before Thanksgiving then said, you know what, I chose last week. I chose the Lions. And even those that didn't change their opinion from before to after did in fact change the confidence. How confident were you last week that the Packers were? Oh, I was only 40% confident. Or in truth, last week they said they were 80% sure. So we find that it's one of these things where once you know the truth, then you look at it and you go, well, of course I knew that. It's like when I know. When I watch Jeopardy, I know every single answer as soon as they tell them. All right? I knew that one. Oh, I knew that one too. Used to drive my roommates crazy. And so what we find is that once you know something, it seems so obvious. So of course, remember the point behind all of this was that is social psychology simply common sense? No. It might look like it once you see the answers, and that's simply the hindsight bias. We need to talk a little bit about research methodology. I'm going to stop this, call this part one of this lecture, because like I told you the last time, these are limited to 15 minutes, and I'm at 11 minutes and 12 seconds. I got a clock over here. So I'm going to stop with that, and then in the second part of this chapter one lecture, I will finish up this material and talk about the research methods. Though the research methods are important for all of you, this is material which you will find in every one of your classes. So for the majority of you, especially those of you that took experimental psychology, this second part should be nothing but a review.